Project Management Professional Training Session 15. Monitoring Stakeholder Engagement and Communication. PMP Exam Objectives: What it really means. 4.1 Measure Project Performance. Measure project performance using appropriate tools and techniques in order to identify and quantify any variances and corrective actions. Here, it means that you know the monitor stakeholder engagement and monitor communication processes inside out, and their role in measuring project performance, comparing this performance with planned desired goals and requesting changes to keep and/or bring the project on track. PMP Exam Objectives: What it really means. 4.5 Review the issues log. Review the issues log, update it if necessary, and determine corrective action by using appropriate tools and techniques to minimize the impact on the project. In this chapter, it refers to the stakeholder engagement and monitor communication processes. 4.6 Capture, analyze, and manage lessons learned. Capture, analyze, and manage lessons learned, using lessons learned management techniques in order to enable continuous improvement. Practically, it can and should be done in every monitoring and controlling process, but in this chapter, it refers to the stakeholder engagement and monitor communication processes, as well as the control resources process. Without project stakeholders, there is literally no project. Your project is doomed to fail without successful project stakeholder management. Before asking what stakeholder management is, let's recall who the project stakeholders are. As discussed in Chapter 2, stakeholders will have different levels of enthusiasm, anxiety, fear, and so on. Accordingly, they will have differing needs and expectations. One of the key project management areas on which project success depends is stakeholder satisfaction, achieved by meeting their needs and expectations as aligned with project objectives. A key to keeping stakeholders' expectations aligned with project objectives and meeting those expectations is to keep stakeholders engaged in the project. Project managers have little, if any, control over the stakeholders. So, stakeholder management is all about stakeholders' engagement. As you learned in Chapter 8, stakeholder management and communication management are two inherently closely tied project knowledge areas. Without project stakeholders, there is literally no project. Your project is doomed to fail without successful project stakeholder management, which takes successful communication management. You also learned that stakeholder management is all about stakeholder engagement in the project. Like in any other project knowledge area, communication and stakeholder engagement need to be monitored and controlled. Reflecting the close relationship between stakeholder management and communication management, monitoring and controlling communication and stakeholder engagement are also closely related. So, the question addressed in this chapter is, how do you monitor stakeholder engagement and communication? In search of an answer, we will explore 3 avenues: monitoring stakeholder engagement, monitoring communication, and the role of these two processes in the big picture of stakeholder engagement and communication. Monitoring stakeholder engagement and communication, big picture. As mentioned earlier, stakeholder management is all about stakeholder engagement in the project. The close relationship between stakeholder management and communication management is reflected by the fact that the communications management plan is one of the main items used in preparing the stakeholder engagement plan, which is one of the main items used in preparing the communications management plan. Similarly, the close relationship between the monitor stakeholder engagement and monitor communication processes is reflected by the fact that the communications management plan, stakeholder engagement plan, and resource management plan are the main input items of both of these processes. A high-level look at these processes is presented in Table 14-1.as. Stakeholder engagement in the project needs to continue throughout the project's lifetime. It needs to be monitored. Monitoring stakeholder engagement. The monitor stakeholder engagement process oversees stakeholder engagement, i.e., how it's going. To keep it on track, the information is distributed among the stakeholders and the engagement strategies and plans are modified. Like a typical monitoring and controlling process, its main input is work performance data, and the main output is the work performance information. Figure 14.1 shows the monitor stakeholder engagement process in the big picture of stakeholder management processes. Table 14.2 presents the monitor stakeholder engagement process in terms of its input, tools and techniques, and output. The core of performing the monitor stakeholder engagement process is described in the following section. Performing the monitor stakeholder management process. The core of performing the monitor stakeholder engagement process using items from the input and tools and techniques columns of Table 14.2 is described in the following steps. Get the project execution data and results. The input item work performance data from project execution includes the status of stakeholder engagement in the project, such as who is supporting or opposing the project and at what level. The other input item, project communication, contains the project work performance report and any information that will be or has been distributed to stakeholders. Communicate, distribute the information in project communications, which need to be distributed according to the communication management plan using communication methods like presentation. Make sure the information has been received and understood by using communication methods like feedback. Analyze work performance data. Analyze the stakeholder engagement data in the work performance data document using data analysis techniques, such as stakeholder analysis, root cause analysis, and alternative analysis. The stakeholder analysis, already described in Chapter 3, is performed to determine the support or opposition position of stakeholders regarding the project. The root cause analysis, discussed in Chapter 7, is performed to determine the fundamental reason for not achieving the engagement as planned. Once the root causes are discovered, the alternative analysis, discussed already in multiple chapters, is performed to explore and evaluate the various options for responding to not achieving the engagement as planned. Make decision. After conducting the alternative analysis, evaluate the various options for responding to not achieving the engagement as planned. Make a decision on which option to choose by using multi-criteria decision analysis or voting, both discussed in Chapter 12. Generating the output. The data analysis generates the output item work performance information, which contains the current stakeholder engagement status, such as project support level compared to desired level as defined in the stakeholder engagement assessment matrix. Making a decision on which response option to choose generates change requests, whose implementation causes plan and project document updates, as listed in the output columns of Table 14.2. You will also make use of interpersonal and team skills when monitoring stakeholder engagement. For example, you will use leadership skills, covered in Chapter 2, to share your project vision with the stakeholders and motivate them to support the project objectives and outcome, networking, to find out the project support level among stakeholders, active listening, covered in Chapters 2 and 8, to minimize misunderstandings so as to build consensus, cultural awareness, covered in Chapter 8, to consider cultural sensitivity and differences in communication and engagement requirements, and political awareness, covered in Chapter 8, to better understand organizational strategies and power structure, and to communicate accordingly in order to maximize project support. The enterprise environmental factors and organizational project assets that influence this process are pretty much the same as for the managing stakeholder engagement process. Other items from input not mentioned have their usual roles to play, as already discussed in this chapter. Study Checkpoint 14.1. Knowing the monitor stakeholder engagement process, answer the following. Q1. How will the stakeholder register and risk register be updated as a result of this process? Q2. How will the stakeholder engagement plan, communications management plan, and resource management plan be updated as a result of this process? As you have seen, the communications management plan is used in monitoring stakeholder engagement. Reflecting the two-way connection between monitoring stakeholder engagement and monitoring communication, the stakeholder engagement plan is used in monitoring communication. Monitor communication. The monitor communication process makes sure that the information needs of the project stakeholders are met throughout the entire project lifecycle as planned in the communications management plan and stakeholder engagement plan. It can trigger reruns of the planned communications management and managed communications processes to improve the results of communication. Tip: Monitor communication is a high-level process in the sense that it oversees the planned communications management and managed communication processes to fine-tune them in order to optimize the effective information flow among all participants in project communication, at any and all times. While you are directing and managing the project work, the work results and the progress toward creating the project results are produced. Just producing the results is no guarantee of success. Success is determined by the performance with which the results are being produced. You need to know the performance to keep the project on the right track. Furthermore, the stakeholders need to know with what rate, efficiency, and work quality the resources are being used to deliver the project output. For this, you need to collect the project performance data and evaluate different aspects of the project as to whether they are meeting expectations. In this process, we are interested in the communication aspect of the project, whether communication is gaining the targeted stakeholder support for the project. Caution: all performance indicators are not equal. You must evaluate the impact and implications of each deviation. For example, performance deviations or other issues with key performance indicators, such as actual versus planned schedule, cost, and quality, may trigger an immediate alarm while others may not. In case of alarm, the right message must be delivered to the right stakeholders at the right time, which can lead to a revision by rerunning the appropriate process or processes. The monitor communication process is presented in Table 14.3 in terms of its inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs. Performing the monitor communication process. The purpose of monitor communication is twofold. 1. Ensure that the right information is being distributed to the right stakeholders at the right time using the right methods. And 2. Check this by evaluating the project, e.g., gaining the expected project support from stakeholders. If not, generate change requests in communication plan and management. Figure 14.2 shows the monitor communication process in the big picture of communication management processes. With this in mind, the core of performing the monitor communication process is explained in the following steps using the input and tools and techniques from Table 14.3. Get communication-related general and how-to information. From the Resource Management Plan, fetch current information about project organization in terms of roles and responsibilities. Project organization charts will be useful. From the Communications Management Plan, learn about the current plan for generating/collecting, storing, and distributing information. You can find out the communication strategies from the Stakeholder Engagement Plan. Also, the Communications Management Plan would provide guidance on running the monitor communication process. Get the project execution data and results on communication. The input item work performance data from project execution includes information about the type and quantity of information that was distributed. Also, you can find out from project communications which communication items or artifacts were distributed. This data provide a good picture of what was distributed, to whom, and using which technology and methods. The next step is to analyze and evaluate the impact of this communication on stakeholders and the project. Analyze communication and its impact. To monitor and analyze communication and its impact, do the following. 1. Review record of stakeholders' engagement issues from issues log, including open and resolved issues. 2. Review the lessons learned data from the lessons learned register. It may suggest communication-related changes. 3. Evaluate the stakeholder, e.g., customer, satisfaction surveys. 4. Review the stakeholder engagement assessment matrix and compare the current engagements of stakeholders with the desired ones. This would indicate how effective the current communication is. 5. Use tools provided by PMIS on communication data, including stakeholder surveys, stakeholder engagement assessment matrix, issues log, etc. to access the effectiveness and impact of communication. 6. You can use your interpersonal and team skills such as observation and conversation to work with team to accomplish tasks like 1. Determine more efficient and effective way to update project performance information and distribute it. 2. Determine how to better respond to stakeholders' requests. 3. Based on preceding reviews and evaluations, determine what changes should be made to Communications Management Plan and Stakeholder Engagement Plan to make communication more effective. Of course, you will also be using meetings for these and other controlling communication tasks. 7. All these reviews, from steps 1 to 6, can contribute to generating work performance information and change requests, the main output of this process. Work performance information. This document contains information about how project communication is performing and about the communication impact on the stakeholders. This is obtained by comparing communication as it actually happened with as it was planned. This is done by actions performed in steps 1 through 4, e.g., evaluating customer satisfaction surveys and stakeholder feedback and comparing current engagement levels of stakeholders with the desired levels in the Stakeholder Engagement Assessment Matrix. Work performance information would be put into the monitor and control project work process to create the work performance report, which in turn would be communicated using the managed communication process. Change requests, monitoring communication, such as by steps 1 through 5, may reveal the need to make communication changes to obtain the planned or expected results. The changes could be in any aspect of communication, such as format, content, or the way it's distributed. Changes could also include new methods and procedures, e.g., to improve efficiency. The change requests generated by the monitor communication process, or by any other process, must be processed through the Perform Integrated Change Control process. 8. Update documents. Because project communication is performed according to the Communications Management Plan and the communication strategies in the Stakeholder Engagement Plan, these documents may be modified as a result of the acceptance or implementation of communication changes and would need to be updated. Some new issues may arise and some existing issues may get resolved, stakeholder communication may change, and some lessons may be learned, e.g., which communication method worked better for a particular group of stakeholders, so, accordingly, the issues log, stakeholder register, and lessons learned register may need to be updated. Caution! Do not confuse the monitor communication process with the managed communication. process, even though you must recognize they are closely related and may seem somewhat overlapping. Remember the link between them. Work performance information, a main output of the manage communication process, is be put into the monitor and control project work process. To create the work performance report, which in turn would be communicated using the manage communication process. Study checkpoint 14.2. In the following table, match each item in the first column to one or more items in the second column in the context of its role in communication management. Item role. A. Work performance data 1. Input to monitor and control project work process. B. Work performance information 2. Output of monitor communication. C. Work performance reports 3. Output of monitor and control project work. D. Project communications 4. Output of direct and manage project work. 5. Input to monitor communication. 6. Input to manage communication. 7. Output of manage communication. The three most important takeaways from this chapter are the following. The monitor stakeholder engagement process is a process to oversee stakeholder engagement in order to keep it on track. To this end, the information is distributed among the stakeholders, and the engagement strategies and plans are modified. The monitor communication process is used to ensure that communication is happening as planned in the Communications Management Plan and Stakeholder Engagement Plan. As a result, the targeted stakeholder support for the project is obtained. The monitor stakeholder engagement and monitor communication processes are tightly connected. Summary. The monitor stakeholder engagement process oversees stakeholder engagement, i.e., how it's going. Performance is measured by comparing the project result with the desired results. In this area, information is distributed among the stakeholders, and the engagement strategies and plans are modified to keep the project on track or bring it back on track. A similar method is used in monitoring communication, where the main goal is to ensure that communication is happening as planned in the Communications Management Plan and Stakeholder Engagement Plan. As a result, the targeted stakeholder support for the project is obtained. Road ahead. Up to this point in the book, you have learned how to initiate, plan, execute, and monitor and control the project. For many, if not most, of us, it's common sense that if we start something we must complete it or terminate it properly. The same is true for projects. So, in the next part of this book, we will discuss how to close the project, whether completed or terminated, properly. Exams I view. Comprehend. The main purpose of managing stakeholder engagement is to get continued project support from stakeholders. It is done by managing their needs and expectations through their involvement in the project. The monitor stakeholder engagement process oversees stakeholder engagement and converts the engagement-related data from the project execution into work performance information and generates necessary change requests. Work performance data, generated by the direct and manage project work process, is used as an input to the monitor communication process to generate work performance information. Look out. The Communication Management Plan is an input to all the stakeholder management processes, including monitor stakeholder engagement. Unresolved issues can grow to become a source of conflict. To manage and monitor communication, the Stakeholder Engagement Plan is also used, along with the Communications Management Plan, because it explains how to use appropriate stakeholder communication strategies to engage the stakeholders. Memorize. Stakeholder management is not about managing or controlling the stakeholders, it is about managing and monitoring their engagement in the project. The Communications Management Plan and Stakeholder Engagement Plan are both included in the input of the monitor communication and monitor stakeholder engagement processes and may be updated by either of these processes. Review questions. 1. Which of the following is not an output of monitoring stakeholder engagement? A. Performance reports. B. Change requests. C. Issues resolved. D. Stakeholder engagement plan changed. 2. The issues log is not an input used in the following process. A. Plan stakeholder engagement. B. Plan communications management. C. Manage communication. D. Monitor communication. 3. The sponsor of your project wants to look at the raw data from executing the project, that is, the work performance data. Which process should you run to get this information? A. Manage communication. B. Execute project. C. Direct and manage project work. D. Monitor communication. 4. The sponsor of your project wants to look at the work performance information. Which process should you run to get this information? A. Monitor and control project work. B. Manage communication. C. Direct and manage project work. D. Control scope, control schedule, control cost, or monitor communication. 5. The monitor communication process is performed according to the following plan or plans. Choose the best answer. A. Communication plan. B. Stakeholder engagement plan. C. Stakeholder management plan. D. Communication plan and stakeholder engagement plan. 6. You have generated a project document named Project Communications that can be used in which of the following processes? A. Manage stakeholder engagement. B. Monitor stakeholder engagement. C. Plan stakeholder engagement. D. Distribute information. 7. Which of the following is not an output of monitoring stakeholder engagement? A. Performance reports. B. Change requests. C. Issues resolved. D. Stakeholder engagement plan changed.